The First Team Fantasy Podcast. We have Schiff and myself here as always. Schiff proudly wearing the Ravens gear, and rightfully so. Shout out the god himself, Ray Lewis. We're going over the Sunday afternoon, the Sunday night, and our Monday night recaps. Our first Sunday afternoon game was the Cardinals upsetting the 49ers in Santa Clara, 24-23. It was an impressive game for the Cardinals, a huge win for them within the division. We had some solid performances. Kyler Murray was 19 of 30 for 195 yards, a touchdown, an interception. He also carried it 7 times for 83 yards and a touchdown, giving him 25.1. Kyler Murray's getting it done. And here's a quick note I want to add is 4 out of the 5 games so far this season, Kyler Murray's thrown 1 touchdown or less, and he's also thrown under 200 yards in 3 out of the 5 games. So we were talking before the episode, and I said I'm a little worried about the receivers getting the ball from him. Kyler's going to get it done. Even if he's not getting it done in the air, he gets it done on the ground for himself. He's absolutely getting it done. I just worry a bit about those pass yards when we get into like Marvin Harrison. You know, he's a rookie. He's going to have down weeks. This one was one of them. He was still targeted 7 times. He caught 2 of them for 36 yards, giving him 5.6. So an absolute down week for him. Obviously, we'll see better. They played the Niners, a capable defense. And it's the right idea to try to not let Marvin Harrison Jr. beat you. And he was not the one that beat them. Michael Wilson was actually the leading receiver in this one. He saw 6 targets. He caught 5 of them for 78 yards, giving him 12.8. A solid week for him. And Greg Dortch, out of the 3, was the guy that was absolutely left out. He was only targeted twice, catching 1 for 7 yards, giving him 1.7. We did see Trey McBride play. He popped up late with that rib injury where he became questionable. He did play, and he had a solid week. 9 targets, catching 6 for 53, giving him 11.3. And Elijah Higgins, I'm like, if Trey McBride doesn't play, you can't play this guy. He only gets 1 target. It's a 2-yard touchdown. Kyler Murray's touchdown pass goes to Elijah Higgins yet again, and he finishes with 7.2. It is what it is. I still stand by it. If Trey McBride were to miss time, I don't feel comfortable playing him. He doesn't get the volume we would like to see. And out of the running back room, I believe DeMercado caught 1 pass for, I think, 4 yards, and that was it. The only guy to get run was James Conner. He got everything. He carried it 19 times for 86 yards, caught 2 of his 3 targets for 14. He also had a 2-point conversion. So he finished with 14 fantasy points. A solid week for him. And the man himself, Chad Ryland. I don't know why anyone would have started him, but if you did, he gave you 10. So a solid week for him. And the defense actually gave us 9. Again, I hope you didn't start the Cardinals defense in this one. But they did all right.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that I would have really suggested, but I don't know. There's crazier things that people have done. The Niners once again found a way to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory against a divisional opponent.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is still early, but it's tough when you drop 2 games that you very well should have won against, like I said, divisional opponents. It's going to come back to bite them later on in the year.
Yeah.
As for Brock Purdy, he didn't have the greatest game. Honestly, I thought he would be a pretty good start. He had a Patrick Mahomes performance, not horrible, but not very good either. 19 for 35, 244 yards, 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions, including that one at the end of the game, which sealed it, if you saw. He also ran the ball 4 times for 33 yards, which was a nice little addition. So 15.1 points from him. Seen much better days, but I don't know. And really just wasn't the greatest game out of him. And the Niners just collapsed kind of in the second half yet again. They had another 10-point lead in the fourth quarter, and here they are on the wrong side of the win-loss column.
Yeah.
But Jordan Mason had 14 attempts for 89 yards. Unfortunately, lost a fumble. Also caught his lone target for 9 yards, so he finished with 8.8 points. Yeah, he didn't get in the end zone, which kind of hurt.
Yeah.
And also losing that fumble took him down from a double-digit week. Still staying in the flames with him. He's going to perform. Isaac going to perform. Isaac Guerrero got a little more run than you would like to see, but the guy's got a little. Jordan Mason has to get a break here and there, but
Yeah.
5 carries for Guerrero for 22 yards. Nothing fantastic. He only got 9 snaps, so it's nothing that's really going to harm Jordan Mason, but you would like to see better days out of him.
Yeah.
Brandon Ayuk, on the other hand, finally did something towards earning that contract. Had 12 targets, which he caught 8 of for 147 yards, giving him 22.7 points. He was great in this one. Played 92% of the snaps, which was actually the most he's logged all year to date. So I
Mm-hmm.
think moving forward, I mean, he had a slow start, didn't do anything in the preseason, offseason with the team, wasn't at camp. You figured it would be a slow start for him, a bit slower than you would have hoped, but we're here now, and I'm obviously very happy with the performance. Moving on with Brandon Ayuk, I'm just leaving him in the lineup.
Yeah.
Debo Samuel, on the other hand, came back from injury and had a very poor performance. Caught one of his 3 targets for 11 yards and ran the ball 3 times for 9 yards, giving him 3 points on the day. Um,
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily going to look too far into this one. It was a bad game, but I think Debo is going to have much better days. And something that we did see, Jawan Jennings with all 3 of the main weapons of the Niners passing game on the field, being Kittle, Ayuk, and Debo. Jennings kind of took a back seat. He got one more target than Debo, caught one of his 4 targets for 13 yards, giving him 2.3 points. I think he's still like if you a safer emergency play, but I'm not trying to force him into my lineup. I think he's just depending on the health of the other guys. Like it looks like Kittle's questionable again.
Yeah.
If any of them are unable to go, then Jennings is a good play. But other than that, you're just kind of holding on to him, waiting for someone else to get hurt for him to have true relevance in this offense.
Yeah.
George Kittle, man, he has been great when he's been on the field. Had 12 targets, caught 8 of them, just like Ayuk, but for 64 and a touchdown, giving him 20.4 points on the day. He played 91% of the snaps. I mean, when he's out there, he is so good, and he is a huge part of this offense. So definitely just looking to make sure that he's going to play this week. I mean, he had a questionable tag all of last week. It's hard to see the Niners playing without him, really. So, I mean, he might take it easy throughout the week. And then I think it's going to be tough. They play Thursday night against Seattle, do they not?
I believe so. And that
Okay.
will be a quick turnaround for them.
Yeah. So definitely pay close attention to that one, and we will keep you guys as updated as we can. But yeah, that's pretty big considering they play Thursday night. Uh, but yeah, he had an amazing game, and hopefully you see him out there on the field against Seattle. Jake, this I'm not sure exactly what happened in this one to Jake Moody,
Goes on
but
a return.
okay.
He got messed
Yeah,
up
I
his
mean, I
ankle, I
didn't see it.
think.
Yeah, so he ended up going out of this game. He scored 8 points, and then their punter Andy Wisnowski, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Actually came in and kicked a, I think, 26-yard field goal. So good for him. And then the Niners defense got 12 points. So all in all, for the fantasy performances, it was there for Ayuk and Kittle. Something that we've seen, honestly, like last year was pretty consistent out of the Niners. Like one or two guys would get it done every week. It wasn't often that all three of the main options
Mm-hmm.
would have a great week. So I think you stay in the flames with all of them as long as they're all healthy. And Jennings, if you would like to hold on to him, in case somebody gets hurt, then you can go ahead. But I think as we saw in this recent game, when all of the main guys are on the field, he's not going to be a main
Yeah.
focus.
Yeah, for sure. And just to touch on Jake Moody, Kyle Shanahan expects him to miss around a month. I'm going to
Whoa.
say go ahead and drop Jake Moody. It is not worth keeping a roster spot. Unless you have open IR and you play a league like that and you want to just stash him, you have an open spot, then go ahead. But
It's not worth it.
yeah,
It's
if you have to use a roster spot on him to keep him on your bench, do not do that.
oh, my friend. I'm
It is what it is. Our next game is the Raiders going into Denver and losing to the Broncos for the first time in what would have been coming up on 5 years. I'm not going to dive super. We're here to cover the fantasy aspect. The Raiders were ahead 10-3 in this game, driving the field at the goal line. Gardner
about to go
Minshew
up 73.
rolls left. Brock Bowers is right there. Would have been a touchdown. Would have been 17-3. Overthrows him. 100-yard pick six for Surtain, and Broncos never looked back. The momentum shifted completely. I genuinely think that whole game would have gone differently had Minshew hit his wide open guy, and it would have been 17-3 Raiders, but it did not, and that's how the game went. It was not, for the guys we were looking at fantasy wise, it was not a terrible performance from the Raiders side. Minshew didn't look great by any means. He was 12 of 17 for 137 yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions, 2 good runs for 22 yards, finishing with 9.68 before getting benched. He played 63% of the snaps. Aiden O'Connell came in and looked just as bad, if not worse, in the other 37%. He went 10 for 20, 94 yards, threw another interception, 2.76. Our running backs, I told you Madison could get you double digits this week. He was not efficient on the ground by any means. He was 15 carries for 38 yards. He caught 2 of his 3 targets for 23, and he got a 2-point conversion. He gave us 10.1. He did crack double digits, albeit barely. But again, if it was an emergency start that you had to make, you had no other options, that doesn't absolutely kill you. I will say
Yeah, he
that
didn't end you.
it does give you some hope for the week. So hopefully that was enough for you. But like we've seen all season when Zamir White's in and Madison outshines him, it was the same case here with Amir Abdullah outshining Madison, which is disgusting. He had a long run, the longest run of the season for the Raiders so far. He had 5 carries for 42 yards. He got that late 3-yard touchdown in the fourth that we're used to Madison sniping from White. Now he snipes it from Madison, of course. He caught all 3 of his targets for 9 yards. He gave you 14.1. No one started him. But it's unbelievable. It's just ridiculous. Based off the yardage, we knew the pass catchers were going to have a rough game. One guy that absolutely did not was Brock Bowers. He started the game with a incredibly long touchdown, and he was effective the entire game for the Raiders. He caught 8 of his 12 targets for 97 yards and a touchdown, giving you 23.7, and also his first NFL touchdown, so congrats to Brock. A great week for him. Jacoby Myers also, I'm going to say got it done. Didn't have a good week or a great week by any means, but catches 6 of his 9 targets for 72, gets 13.2. That'll get it done for a guy if you're plugging him in only for the week. The guy who got left out was Trey Tucker. Only caught 2 of his 5 targets for 18 yards, carried it twice for 8 yards, giving him 4.6. And then if Devontae, and it does really seem like it sadly, that Devontae will be traded, DJ Turner's going to step into that wide receiver 3 role. He caught 1 of his 4 targets for 12 yards. He had a rush for 5. He finished 2.7. It was not a great week, and you can imagine the lack of scoring, having to go for a 2-point conversion at the end. Daniel Carlson, 5 fantasy points. So it just was not a great week, but again, the guys we look to start, like Bowers, great week for him. If you had to start Madison, doesn't kill you. If you had to start Myers, didn't kill you. So from a fantasy outlook, I mean, you scraped by. Their performances did enough to hopefully scrape you by.
Yeah. I don't know, and it's I don't have much confidence in that offense from a fantasy perspective right now, outside of Brock Bowers, obviously.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, did you see what Antonio Pierce said? They're like treating it as a competition as for who's getting the quarterback 1 job this week and moving forward. And we are going into week 6.
I mean, that's just what you get when you have 2 extremely lower end quarterbacks that can't differentiate themselves. And Gardner, I hoped, would have done good enough. It's really tough because, again, I'm going to go back. If he hits Brock Bowers, the whole game looks different. And I genuinely think we don't have this conversation of, Aiden O'Connell still creeping in. At least you'd know who the quarterback's going to be. I have no idea who they're going to go with going forward.
That's just the thing about Gardner Minshew, though, is his highs are high and his lows are, but like he
Low.
makes those bad decisions to
Mm-hmm.
he panicked and tried to he put too much air on it, trying to get away from the incoming linebacker or defensive tackle. I'm not
Yep.
sure what it was, but instead of even just throwing it away and taking another snap from inside of the 10-yard line.
Yep.
It's things like that, and it's just tough though. I mean, a week going up against the Steelers, you're splitting the QB1 reps 50-50 in practice. They don't have Devontae Adams.
Mm-hmm.
It just is a train wreck, and it makes it very tough. So that's my concern. Looking at the Broncos side of the ball, though, Bo Nix, I mean, I don't know if we can expect a lot more of this going forward, at least consistently. He'll have his games, and he's starting to look good. But he was 19 for 27, 206 yards, 2 touchdowns. Honestly, should have been 20 for 27, like 266.
Yeah, his boy let him down.
That, I mean,
Literally
that was
his guy since college.
one of the easier touchdowns that you'll see, and he just dropped it.
Yeah.
And so Troy Franklin we're talking about, but still had 2 touchdowns, also had 8 rushing attempts for 9 yards and 1 touchdown.
Yeah.
Which he jumped over the line, which probably shouldn't do that too many more times. But it did work that time. So he finished with 23.1 points. Very good day out of Bo Nix. Javonte Williams, definitely, I mean, he is rostered as he should be. It's hard to kind of predict what's going on in the Denver backfield on a week in, week out basis.
For sure.
You have Javonte playing 63% of the snaps, Jaleel McLaughlin getting 37%. But, Javonte gets 13 attempts for 61 yards. Jaleel gets 6 attempts for 22. Javonte, 5 receptions on 6 targets for 50 yards. And Jaleel gets 3 receptions on 4 targets for 3 yards, but he got the touchdown and he got the goal line, play scripted for him. That's the thing that's difficult about it. I mean, they both get goal line work. It seems like pretty evenly. They don't really differentiate too much. They don't bring in one guy specifically for So with the limited opportunities that I think the Broncos offense is going to have at the goal line throughout the season, the Raiders offense just got to a point in this game where after that pick six, I think through a certain point in the third quarter, they only had 38 yards.
Yeah.
And it's like we talk about. I mean, it's how football works. If your defense is on the field all the time, they're going to give up everything. And that's kind of what ended up happening. I mean,
Yeah.
you get guys on the field for so long, they're going to give up a bunch of stuff. The defensive linemen are going to get tired. The pass rush isn't going to be as good. The pocket's going to be cleaner. And Bo Nix can complete more passes and throw for 2 touchdowns, move the ball down the field. Do I see this happening that often? Like I said, no, not really. Makes it tougher to trust the Denver options. Bo Nix might end up being a decent streaming option, though, just due to the fact that he does run the ball. He will take off and scramble a decent amount. And when they're
Mm-hmm.
at the goal line, he'll snipe touchdowns too.
Yeah.
Kind of like, so it's just tough with that backfield. But the receivers is even more disgusting. Little Jordan Humphrey led the room with 2 targets and 2 catches for 48 yards, giving him 6.8 points. Oh, and Javante finished with 16.1 points. Jaleel finished with 11.5. So there's that. Good day for both of them, obviously, but they put up 34 points. Little Jordan Humphrey, like I said, 6.8 points. Cortland Sutton had a pretty bad day. 2 catches on 5 targets for 32 yards, giving him 5.2. Troy Franklin should have had a much better day.
Yeah.
Had 2 targets, caught one of them for 20 yards. Like I said, should have been like, I don't know exactly how
It would
deep
have been
that
like
pass was.
2 for like 65, 70, and a tutty. So it would have been
Yeah, it
14
was at
fantasy
least
points, you
like
know?
50 yards.
Yeah.
So it, but not that anybody was starting Troy Franklin, just talking about things that could have been.
Yeah.
Adam Troutman caught his lone target for 19 yards, giving him 2.9 points, and Will Lutz finished with 13 points. The Denver defense,
They had a great day.
yes, they did, my friend. Let me actually look at the number on that. They put up 16 points on the day. They are currently the number 4 defense in fantasy, right behind Chicago, Green Bay, and Minnesota. Jesus, the whole NFC North. All right. That is something that I'm sure people saw.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's that. The Denver defense is a pretty great play moving forward. And like I said, it's just tough with their offense to really predict what it's going to be on a week to week basis, just the way they play. Their defense really wins games for them.
For sure.
Oh my goodness. This next game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there were a lot of wild games on Sunday. There were, I think, the rest of these. I mean, the Niners game, the Niners Cardinals game, that was one of the crazier ones. The Cardinals ended up winning in the final 2 minutes of that game. This one here, the Giants, who went into Seattle and beat the Seahawks 29-20. This one was crazy
Yeah.
because it looked like the Giants had this game won for a minute. I think they were up 23 to 10, 23. Yeah, 20, was it 23 to 10, 22 to 10? They were up by 2 scores in the waning minutes of the fourth quarter. And Geno Smith storms back, Seahawks storm back, get within 3, and they go to kick the field goal to tie it up 23 to 23. And it's blocked and returned for a touchdown. I mean, some of the stuff we
Mm-hmm.
saw on Sunday was just like the pick six, the 100-yard pick six in Denver. There was in this same game, I believe there was a 100-yard fumble return for a touchdown
Mm-hmm.
by the Seahawks, and then the Giants go and return the game-winning kick six. there was a lot of crazy stuff that happened on Sunday.
Yeah.
Just had to mention that it was a wild day. Kind of like the fact that we said the Giants were practically unstartable. I mean, this was not something that I saw happening at all. You take out Malik Neighbors, you take out Devin Singletary, and Brian Dable said, okay. Daniel Jones was 23 for 34, 257 yards and 2 touchdowns, 11 rushing attempts for 38 yards. I believe he also lost a fumble, finished with 22.1 points. A great day out of him.
He's
Something
been
that
playing a
wasn't
lot
really
better.
expected. He has, and actually looking it up on the year, he is unfortunately QB 14.
Hey.
Only reason I bring that up, one spot ahead of Patrick Mahomes at 15. So that's what we're dealing with right now.
Yeah.
Tyrone Tracy filled in for Devin Singletary and did a hell of a job. Had 18 attempts for 129 yards and caught one of his 2 targets for a single yard, but finished with 14 points. If you made the emergency pivot, you had Singletary and saw he wasn't going to, like, whatever the case may be, if you happened to start Tyrone Tracy this week, congratulations. That was definitely more than anybody had expected from him.
Yeah.
Eric Gray had some involvement also. Was really good in the pass game, but horrible on the ground. Also lost a fumble fairly early. I believe he was the one that lost the fumble at the goal line that got returned for the touchdown by the Seahawks.
On the opening drive as well.
Yeah, so it was quite early. He 4 yards, 4 attempts, 1 yard per carry, 1 lost fumble, but caught 3 of his 4 passes for 50 yards. So he finished with 6.4 points. Could have been a very different day for him had he scored there rather than.
The note they
And it was
have
like,
for Eric Gray is Gray fumbled on the goal line in the opening drive that resulted in the touchdowns for the Seahawks defense. Tyrone Tracy Jr. took over the lead role the rest of the afternoon. Gray will remain off the fantasy radar. Like, they just sent him to the abyss.
I mean, 4 yards on 4 carries with a fumble instead of a touchdown.
At the goal line.
That'll kind of do that to you. But, yeah, it was funny. 6.4 points for him. Darius Slayton, though, had.
Wow.
I said I really wouldn't start Darius Slayton, and I don't regret saying that. If you didn't have a choice, we said he was going to be out there, and it was kind of gross if you needed to start him or Wandale. And Darius Slayton got 11 targets, caught 8 of them for 122 and a touchdown, giving him 26.2 points. Was out there for 90% of the snaps. Wandale, I said he'd probably get a lot of catches for like nothing, but he caught 6 of his 9 targets for 36. Happened to get in the end zone, so good day.
Yeah.
Also had 1 rushing attempt for 4 yards, 16 points out of him. Theo Johnson, rookie tight end for the Giants, caught all 5 of his targets for 48 yards, giving him 9.8 points. And Greg Joseph added a nice little 11 points for the G-Men.
Yeah. Have you seen...
I believe their defense...
Oh, they had a good week.
Yeah, because they returned a kick for a touchdown. Yeah, they had 19 points.
Yeah. Have you seen the stat about teams that play the Lions, how they perform the next game this year?
No.
So they've been outscored. Teams that play the Lions the week after have been outscored 109 to 31. Some examples are the Rams played the Lions, and then they lost 41 to 10 to the Bucks. And then the Lions played the Bucks.
To the Cardinals.
Yeah, to the Cardinals. And then they played the Bucks. And then the Bucks lose 26 to 7 to the Broncos. Then they play the Cardinals, and the Cardinals lose 42 to 14 to the Commanders. Then they played the Seahawks, and the Seahawks lose at home to the Giants. People are just saying, like,
off the bye.
Luckily they had the bye. So there's no curse continuing this week, but Yeah, I mean, something to at least look at. And it, obviously, it could just be coincidence. But it's
It's
just, it's
really
crazy
coincidental.
some of the games, though, like how the Bucks have looked so good. They got absolutely destroyed by the Broncos. The Seahawks just lost at home to the Giants somehow. It it's been crazy. And this was not a great day for the Seahawks side of the ball. I mean, it wasn't terrible. Geno did throw the ball pretty well. He had 28 attempts or 28 completions on 40 attempts for 284 yards and a touchdown. He carried it 4 times for 72 yards. Did you see the clip of JSN faking out the 2 defenders while Geno ran? Geno rolls out to the right.
No.
Yeah, Geno rolls out to the right and goes to run. And JSN's just running downfield, hands above his head, 2 defenders on him, just trailing him, and Geno just gets like 30 yards off it. Like, it worth mentioning because it really helped Geno out, and it was a great play by JSN.
No, I saw on Red Zone real quick. It just flashed to the Geno run, but I was mostly like tuned into the Packer and Rams game because I
Oh yeah,
had Wicks and Josh Jacobs and Adam had Jaden Reed. So
yeah, no, rightfully so. It was so random, but it was wild. Uh, their run game was non-existent in this one. Ken Walker carried it 5 times for 19 yards. Charbonnet carried it 2 times for 11 yards. So the Seahawks did not run the ball. And luckily, Ken Walker caught a lot out of the backfield. He caught 7 of his 8 targets for 57 yards, giving him 14.6. Charbonnet caught 3 of his 5 for 19, giving him 6. So not a great week for Charbonnet. And realistically, if Ken Walker's healthy, it's hard to imagine every week. You know, Charbonnet had been getting double digits. That's not going to hold up through the entire season if Ken Walker is playing. So something to really look at moving forward is if Walker is playing, how involved Charbonnet will be. Obviously, he's going to get passes out of the backfield, but if he's not finding the end zone, I feel like we're going to see more weeks of him getting a little bit less than more going forward, especially when you have 3 capable receivers. It's just hard to spread the ball around to everyone. DK had his second worst game of the season, other than when he got the Pat Surtain treatment. He caught 4 of his 7 targets for 55 yards, but he lost a fumble for the second week in a row, giving him 7.5. Again, DK's a guy we leave in no matter what. There will be much better weeks to come. JSN caught 4 of his 7 targets for 31 and a touchdown, giving him 13.1. And Tyler Lockett caught 4 of his 6 for 75, giving him 11.5. I mean, very evenly dispersed through that wide receiver room. That's not exactly what you want to see if you have DK, but I'd chalk this one up to a bit more of an anomaly than the normal DK getting held to 7.5 fantasy points. The defense, I want to bring up the defense because I thought they would be a great start this week. They did lose. They did give up 29 points, but they still got 12 fantasy points somehow, mainly because of the touchdown, the fumble. So, yeah.
There's
So,
a lot of points in that play.
for sure. So the defense got it done. Jason Myers gave you 9. He got it done. Hope for better weeks from the Seahawks, who, 2 weeks ago were talked about as potentially the best team in the NFC to start the season. And now they're kind of skidding just a little bit.
I mean, they've come down to earth, kind of like the Steelers.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're still a great team, but, an NFC favorite, that might be a little much. And our next game, the Packers, pretty shorthanded, going into Los Angeles and beating the Rams 24-19. Jordan Love, I mean, he's been good. Like, all 3 games he's played, he's been good. His completion percentage hasn't been the greatest. That's his one thing, but they do pass it. And when he completes, normally it's for some good yards. So he had another solid game, 15 of 26, 224 yards, 2 touchdowns, a pick, 3 carries for 10 yards, basically 17 fantasy points. A decent week for him, and obviously missing Christian Watson, missing Romeo Doubs. A couple of his weapons weren't out there for him, so it is what it is. Josh Jacobs is still the absolute guy there. 19 carries for 73 yards and a touchdown. Caught his lone target for 21, giving him 16.4. Emmanuel Wilson, he's going to get some look. Like, he got 6 carries for 24, caught his lone target for -9. So he finished with 2.5. I like Emmanuel Wilson if you have Josh Jacobs, but also the problem with that is Josh Jacobs will play through injury. Josh Jacobs, if he can, even humanly possible, be on the field, he will make sure he's out there. So unless he misses time, Emmanuel Wilson isn't exactly viable. Again, the wide receiver room was a bit thin, so we saw more Bo Melton. We saw more Malik Heath. They each got a couple targets. Malik finished with 3.4, Bo Melton 2.2, not really notable. Jaden Reed still clearly operating as the wide receiver 1. He got 6 targets, caught 4 of them for 78, 2 rushes for 19, giving you 13.7. Again, it wasn't the best week for a lot of these guys, but again, Jaden Reed, 13.7, not a bad week by any means. Dontavion Wicks, I know we'd hoped for more. The one thing from last week was I know he got like 13 targets, and that's incredibly exciting. And in this one, he gets 7 targets. It's just the fruit that has been like bared from the opportunities hasn't been the most efficient. Like in this one, he gets 7 targets. He catches 2 of them for 20 yards, 4 fantasy points. I still think Dontavion Wicks can be the second most talented receiver in this room. He can still be the wide receiver too. I'd like to see them convert a bit more efficiently, but it is good to see him getting that target share and being as involved as he is. And Tucker Kraft, man, God, he's balling. Tucker Kraft is absolutely feasting of recent. Catches 4 of his 5 targets for 88, 2 touchdowns, gives him 24.8. That's where both the touchdowns from Love went. Again, the Packers defense, as Schiff had mentioned, is a top 5 fantasy defense so far. They gave you 14 in this one. And Braden Narvison gave you 7. I mean, book it. The Packers have an exciting offense. They have a really exciting offense.
Yeah, they do. And I definitely look forward to. I mean, I'm definitely not dropping Dontavion Wicks by any means, but and they have a pretty exciting matchup against Arizona coming up.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to see how they do in that one. Going to the Rams side of the ball, I said I wasn't starting Matt Stafford this week, and he was 29 for 45, 260 yards, a touchdown, and an interception, 13.4 points out of him. It's just not really like the Rams can do enough to stay in games because they have really good coaching. But without their top weapons there, it's just not going to be too good fantasy-wise for Matt Stafford. Kyron Williams, on the other hand, is going to continue to eat. Had 22 attempts for 102 yards and a touchdown, unfortunately lost a fumble, but also had a reception for 3 yards on his lone target, giving him 15.5 points. He played 86% of the snaps to Corum's 14, which Corum had 5 attempts in for 25 yards and also caught a pass for 8 yards, giving him 4.3 points.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Whittington was the play that I liked kind of as a floor play this week. He ended up getting 10 targets and catching 7 of them for 89 yards, so 15.9 points out of him. Kind of liked Tutu Atwell as more of a big play threat, but he was also kind of a volume play this week. Got 10 targets as well, caught 6 of them for 58 yards, and had a rushing attempt for 7, so he got 12.5 points. The guy in the receiving room who got the touchdown was Demarcus Robinson. He had 5 targets, which he caught 3 of for 28 yards and a touchdown, so 11.8 points for him. Looking at the snap percentages, Demarcus Robinson played the most with 97% and 76 snaps. Jordan Whittington played 4 less snaps, and then Tutu Atwell was down at 81%. So he I mean, this week and last week he played a lot more than he normally does, but they're going into the bye. It's thought that Cooper Kupp could return out of the bye.
Yeah.
So I'm more looking uh, to hold on to like Jordan Whittington or maybe stash him if he's available. If someone drops him after this week, since they're going on a bye and you have room, just because it's more unknown when Puka Nakua is coming back. And if Jordan Whittington can serve as that wide receiver 3 for long enough to maybe even take the spot over for Demarcus Robinson, that it could serve some value throughout the late push of the season. I
Yeah.
mean, this division isn't too far. Like, I think the Rams only have one win, but the Seahawks are 3-2, so it's not that far apart right now.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I do have to talk about Colby Parkinson because he
Ding
had
ding.
13 targets in this game. Yeah, he caught 7 of them for 52 yards for a tight end. 12.2 points in a PPR setting is a very good day. It's no Tucker Craft performance, but you
Yeah.
don't get those that often. So 12.2 points definitely helped you along the way. And kicker Jake Carty only got 1 point. Oh, going into our Sunday night game, which turned into a Sunday night, Monday morning game for all our East Coast people.
Oh yeah.
Think the thunderstorm that was going on in Pittsburgh. The Cowboys ended up winning 20-17, and honestly, the game was like boring but exciting
Yeah. Yeah.
because it was like close, but it was just not the best football.
It reminded you of like old school football. You know what I mean? Like back, it's like 2007. The defenses are going at it. It's like any points that you put up mean something. And like these are two capable teams too.
Yeah, it was just kind of ugly at times.
Yeah, I mean,
Dak threw the ball 42 times, completed 29 of them for 352 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and I believe he also lost a
yep.
fumble. So that's kind of where like the ugliness. It wasn't a clean game of football. It was obviously raining like crazy, so on and so forth. But I mean, it was hard nosed Cowboys versus Steelers. I get like kind of old school, I guess, like you said. But yeah, Dak finishes with 18.4 points. Not the best day, not the worst day, especially considering the elements and the 3 turnovers. I will take 18.4
Yeah.
points. The Rico Dowdle arrival. He is here. 20 attempts for 87 yards, caught both of his targets for 27 yards and a touchdown. He also lost a fumble, so he would have
Dude,
finished a bit better.
he
But
almost lost the game.
yeah, but
he, he almost lost the game, dude.
well, okay, so he didn't technically lose that fumble, but
Yeah.
that was.
So,
I don't even know if you could entirely blame that on Rico Dowdle as much as that was one of the crazy. Like maybe you can, because I guess if you would have just saw like 4 people flying through the air, he could have just tried to stop and maybe cut the other way. But he was intent on trying to dive into the end zone, and the 4 Steelers were intended on diving at him. And first one that made contact knocked the ball right out. Luckily enough, Dak saw the football and jumped on it. The ending of this game was also insane, though.
yeah.
On 4th down, Dak hit Jalen Tolbert, who was the wide receiver 1 in this game, for the game-winning touchdown. But yeah, Rico Dowdle finished with 19.4 points. Like I said, breakout game for him. Oh God, they're playing the Lions next week, so that's going to be another tough one. But with 20 attempts and Zeke only got 17, or no, Zeke only got 17 yards on 6 attempts. I apologize. I'm definitely, and 50% of the snaps for Rico Dowdle, but they like their Hunter Lipke. He got 2 attempts for 6 yards, caught his lone target for 18 yards, 3.4 points out of him. Yeah, Zeke 6 attempts, 17 yards, didn't catch his lone target. I'm
Yeah.
liking Rico Dowdle moving forward,
For sure.
especially if they're going to give him 22 opportunities. He touched the ball 22 times. That's just pretty great. The fumble is kind of a one-off. It was a crazy play. Could have had 2 touchdowns, though, and would have been an even better day. Going into the receiver room, CD Lamb, like I said, was not the wide receiver. Well, he wasn't the lead receiver in this game. He had 9 targets, caught 5 of them for 62 yards, and had 1 rushing attempt for 2 yards. So 11.4 points for him. Not a super horrendous day, but again, this is a guy we drafted super high. So 11.4 points is a disappointment at the end of the day, especially when Jalen Tolbert gets 10 targets, which he catches 7 of for 87 yards and a touchdown, giving him 21.7 points. Did talk about Jalen Tolbert kind of having to step up as that definite wide receiver too, since Brandon Cooks is on IR. They're going up against the Lions this week, as I mentioned, who are kind of a pass funnel defense. With him stepping into that role, I think he is a good pickup
For
for,
sure.
the waivers this week. Another guy, I mean, it's going to start getting thin, guys, honestly, for everybody holding on to that fab. People are going to start disappearing off the waiver wires, and it's going to be guys like Josh Palmer and, you know, like Trey Tucker and
Yeah. The guys that get
Bo
chewed up
Melton.
early and possibly spit back out, like you have guys like Gus Edwards that may be hitting the waivers again. Like guys like it's gonna get thin, really
It's
thin,
going to get thin, and guys with opportunities like Tolbert has right now, you might not get a chance to,
for sure.
pick one of them up. So if you've missed out on a lot of the other guys, you need kind of a backup, a flex guy, trustworthy that you can throw in.
Mm-hmm.
I'd spend up on Tolbert a little bit. Don't go crazy, but it's definitely worth it.
Yeah.
Cavante Turpin also, yeah, Cavante Turpin added 4 catches on 5 targets for 50 yards, had 1 rushing attempt for -6 yards, so he got 8.4 points. Jalen Brooks had a catch on his lone target for 10 yards, and Jake Ferguson caught 6 of his 7 passes for 70 yards, giving him 13.4 points. Kind of wanted to highlight that just because the Raiders are going up against the Steelers in this coming week, which Brock Bowers is their only real known commodity. I mean, Jacoby Myers is a decent flex option, but
Yeah.
realistically, Brock Bowers, and I do think he has an opportunity for success. You just see the 6 for 70 for Jake Ferguson. Granted, they do have CD Lamb, but going into this game against Denver, it was a well-known thing that Brock Bowers was their only real weapon, and he still was able to perform against a very good Broncos defense.
Yeah.
I believe he's talented enough that, if they try to get him the ball, it's obvious that Jake Ferguson had good success against the Steelers. So I think Brock Bowers is still a good play. I would not shy away due to the matchup.
Yeah.
Outside of that, Brandon Aubrey finished with 9 points. And actually, I need to check what the Cowboys defense finished with. They had, they're the defense number 18 right now. They finished with 8 points.
It's not terrible, but
No, especially given the fact that, they were missing a lot of their key guys, but it is what it is. They aren't last year's Cowboys defense, as we've talked about before.
yeah, no, they're not. And it's funny, just the Lions curse. Yeah, the Lions coming off the bye, so the curse isn't in effect this week. The Cowboys play them, and then the Cowboys go on bye. So we're gonna have to wait a couple more weeks, but you will hear about that again a couple weeks down the line. The Steelers side of the ball, I know Justin Fields was drawing heavy interest for a fantasy start this week, mainly because the depleted Cowboys defensive line would open up some holes for Justin Fields to potentially run through. He did not have a bad fantasy day. He didn't have a great one either. He was 15 of 27. He only threw 131 yards. He did throw 2 touchdowns. He carried it 6 times for 27 yards. Gave us 15.94. We'll call it 16. It was a solid week for Justin Fields. If you picked him up and you had a QB on a bye, did not absolutely hurt you. Didn't win you the week either. We knew Jalen Warren and Cordell Patterson were both missing in this one, so it was going to be a lot of Najee. And Najee got the same volume I feel like he would have gotten if Jalen Warren and Cordell Patterson were both healthy in this game. Like
I was saying,
he,
I don't feel like it makes that much of a difference with them being out. He just doesn't get a break.
yeah, yeah,
So maybe it's not even a good thing.
yeah. He played 74% of snaps. He carried it 14 times for 42 yards, so he was not efficient on the ground. He caught both of his targets for 35 yards, gave you 9.7. If there's ever been a Najee Harris stat line, this is it right here. This is a Najee Harris stat line that I'm like, that sounds like what Najee did this week. Gave you 10 fantasy points, wasn't very efficient on the ground, caught a couple passes. You just hope he gets in the end zone. Because if he gets in the end zone, now we're looking 15, 16 fantasy points. But a lot of the times it's this. We talked about the backup was going to be Aaron Shamplin. He did have some run in this game. He only had 4 carries for 14 yards, though. George Pickens. The thing is like they get rid of Deontay because the attitudes. He'd been there for a bit. Things just weren't meshing. George Pickens is in my opinion, the same type of receiver. You see him running routes, and he's not really running them. The effort he gives when he's not being crazy involved sometimes shows pretty significantly. And there were a lot of points in this game where you could say that was the case. He only played 59% of snaps. He caught 3 of his 7 targets for 26 yards, giving him 5.6. And one of those was a big catch at the end of the game. So for a majority of the game, he had 1 or 2 catches for like 10 yards. It wasn't a great game for George Pickens. Give credit to Trayvon Diggs. Say Justin Fields couldn't get him the ball. Whatever the case was, wasn't a great day for him. Van Jefferson had the exact same stat line as George Pickens on 2 less targets. He had 5.6 as well. Calvin Austin had 1.6. The other guy we really look at is Pat Fryer-Muth. He caught all 3 of his targets for 22 yards and a touchdown. Unfortunately, he's the one that got credited with that fumble lost at the end of the game when they're all flipping it backwards. It's not like he, I want to preface, he didn't just fumble it on a legitimate play. He's throwing it backwards, trying to somehow get in the end zone at the very end. He's the one that got
Just
the fault
imagine
for
how
it.
that would be if you effectively lost your week on that. Like, I would be
Someone out there
devastated.
did. Someone
Yeah.
out there did.
Moving forward, though, I think he is a great
Yeah.
tight end option.
Yeah, no,
He's currently sitting out. Last time I checked, it was tight end 7. That might have been before this week.
yeah,
He is
Kelsey
the tight
may
end 7.
have. Okay,
No,
yeah.
Kelsey's tight end 8.
Wow.
Guess what? Isaiah Likely back to tight end 5.
Yeah, I know. I didn't even want
It's
to bring
just
that up when we covered the Ravens game because I'm like,
I
you've got
had
to be
to.
kidding me. Like,
I
yeah,
had to, dog. Like, here we are,
yeah,
6 weeks in now.
yeah. Fryermuth's another tight end that you play analytics, you go by the book. He should be starting in a 10-man league, especially a 12. It is annoying that Connor Hayward also did catch a touchdown. He only played 22% of snaps, saw 4 targets, caught 2 of them for 23 yards in that touchdown, giving him 10.3. Darnell Washington was out there for 52% of snaps, caught 1 of his 2 targets for
He's
1.5.
basically an extra tackle.
Oh, for sure. He is ginormous. He's incredible for blocking. Muth is the guy there. He is the lead tight end by far. It just sucks to see Connor Hayward snipe a touchdown, but these things do happen.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. And I mean, outside of that, Chris Boswell had 6 fantasy points. The defense has been a solid play through the season so far. Currently, the number 6 defense fantasy-wise, and they gave you 13 in this one. And we have
They're
made it.
going up against the Raiders, who don't know who their quarterback is going to be this week. So, unfortunately, another great play.
Yeah. No, it's fair. And we go to the Monday night game where I expected more from the Saints, but the Chiefs are an extremely well-coached team. They show up ready to play, and they did in this one. The Chiefs won 26-13, and it was another rough, a rough week. I don't want to say another, but a very rough week for the Saints side of the ball. Derek Carr was 18 of 28 for 165 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception, giving him 13.6 before he left the game with an oblique injury. And Jake Haener came in and went 2 of 7 for 17 yards. I'm not even going to. 2 of 7, 17 yards, 2 carries, 11. He less than 2 fantasy points. Only worth noting because if Derek Carr misses time, it's actually not known if it's going to be Jake Haener or if it's going to be the guy with the worst attitude on QB1, Spencer Rattler. It could be his opportunity. I'm stashing him in Dynasty. I have hope for the guy. If it is one of the two, I hope it is Rattler. I hope he does get his chance. But we will have to see. That's something to heavily monitor because as up and down as Derek Carr is, I would like to think right now Derek Carr offers bigger fantasy upside for these receivers than Rattler or Jake Haener could. Right now, at least. Alvin Kamara was inefficient on the ground in this one. 11 carries for 26 yards, but he gets targeted out of the backfield. Caught 6 of his 8 for 40 yards, giving him 12.6. Chris Olave basically got dudded in this one. He caught 2 of his 4 targets for 10 yards, giving him 3 fantasy points. So an extremely underwhelming week. Like Chris Olave, that could, someone in our league, it literally lost him the week. So that loses you a week. Kamara, that's a decent week, but from what fantasy owners have come to get used to from him, you could say it was a bit of a disappointment from what we're used to seeing, but still a viable week for him. Rashid Shaheed, again, struck gold. Caught 4 of his 9 targets for 86 and a touchdown, giving him 18.6. And then you have the tight ends that I don't care if they have good games. I will never trust a Saints tight end outside of Taysom Hill, and I don't even want to trust him. But if I have to pick one of them, it is him. But he was missing in this one, so Juwan Johnson catches all 5 of his targets for 31, giving him 8.1. Foster Moreau, 2 catches for 13 yards and a touchdown, giving him 9.3. Blake Grupe missed one of his extra points, so he finished with 0, and the defense gave us 5. It just not a good week. The Chiefs' defense is legit. It's going to get them back to potential Super Bowl contention again. It'll be the defense.
Yeah, I at least don't see them losing before the AFC Championship game. They're ridiculous. If they can stay healthy, that defense is going to carry them a long way. Patrick Mahomes kind of did what we talked about, and he was 28 for 39, 331 yards, but 1 interception with no touchdowns, 6 rushing attempts for 22 yards. So he got 14.4 points. Excuse me. The Chiefs ran the ball 1 less time than they threw it. They're split pretty fairly down the middle with what they tried to do. Realistically, like you said, this game kind of just showed how good the Chiefs coaching is because they took the shells of Juju Smith-Schuster and Kareem Hunt, and I can't remember the last time Juju had a game like this, probably when he played for the Chiefs. And Kareem Hunt, it's been a while since he has been this effective. 27 attempts for him for 102 yards and a touchdown. Also caught his lone target for 15 yards, giving him 18.7 points. It was the Kareem Hunt show. He was effective. He works with their scheme. He's played with Coach Reed before. So if you happen to pick him up, if you happen to pay up for him, he is going to be the guy moving forward in Kansas City until Isaiah Pacheco returns, whenever that is, probably late in the season. But Carson Steele added 5 attempts for 12 yards, and Samaje Perine got 2 targets, caught 1 for 24 yards. So neither one of them are doing anything but kind of spelling Kareem a little bit. And that's it. Kareem is the guy. So, Juju. We talked about this game would kind of show whether or not Rashee Rice was going to kind of take that step forward and be that wide receiver 1 kind of moving forward, or whether, I mean, it's still possible that he later on in the season does kind of what Rashi did last season and Rashi's rookie season. It's still possible, but for the time being, I think they have, I mean, Worthy played 67% of the snaps, Watson played 70%, and Juju played 67. So it's not like anyone's getting a significant, bump on playing time compared to the others. And I mean, Juju's caught 7 of his 8 targets for 130 yards. Like, he's won a Super Bowl with this team. He, in fact, drew the penalty that won the team their, that Super Bowl against the Eagles, the one that started their quest for this 3. So, I mean, he knows how this works, and I don't see a whole bunch of 100+ yard games out of him because
Yeah.
he got multiple chunk plays, and I don't see a bunch of that happening. But he's going to be a reliable target on this team, and I think he'll be a fantasy asset moving forward.
Yeah. They're just so
Um,
depleted. They're so depleted in that wide receiver
they
room.
are. And Xavier Worthy, like I talked about, caught 3 of his 6 targets for 25 yards and had rushing attempts for 3 yards and a touchdown. It's kind of like a gadget guy right now, realistically. And it's not what you would want to see. Like I said, maybe he could step into that role, like, a bigger route tree later on in the season. Right now, it's just not there, but 11.8 points out of him. He's kind of a good flex option, a little bit risky week in, week out. He doesn't score a touchdown. He's kind of going to burn you on most weeks. McCole Hardman
Yeah.
caught all 4 of his targets 3 yards, giving him 7.3 points. Travis Kelce, like we said, is back. He's going to have to be. Got 10
Yeah.
targets, caught 9 of them for 70 yards, 16 points for him. You love to see it, especially if you drafted him, high like you did. Noah Gray caught both of his targets for 29, giving him 4.9 points. Harrison Butker added on 13. Unless I'm mistaken, no, it was 13 points.
Yep.
And the Chiefs D added on 7 points despite keeping the Saints to 13. Just not very many,
The Chiefs,
sacks in
yeah,
there.
the Chiefs defense is like what the
They got plenty of
Niners,
coverage.
yeah, they're like what the Niners defense has been, where the Niners were like in real life a top 3 defense, but it didn't necessarily show fantasy wise. That's how the Chiefs are. They get the stops, they don't get too many sacks, they don't get too many interceptions. They're not flashy, but they are good. They are absolutely unstoppable right now. So that's all that matters for
Nah,
them.
100%.
There
Well,
we are.
guys, we will be back a little later with our waiver wire episode.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know how it goes. We'll start off with the Thursday night preview. Talked about that a little bit. The Niners and Seahawks should be an exciting one. And then continue on with the rest of the week. Hopefully, we can get a head-to-head in this week, get all the
Yeah.
guys together. We'll have to do that for you guys. But once again, we'd like to thank you for all the support. Derek, if you'd have anything to add.
No, we are good to go.
All right. Come back next time. Take more ups with the first team.
Yes, sir.